Welcome to the Mostly Planet at Night. Mostly, I am Salem, joined by my co-host Graveyard.
Hello.
This is episode 71 of our weekly All Things Horror podcast, and this is also the second week of my month where I get to do stuff. This week we're in Squaresville, daddio. Cubesville. Cube's like a bunch of squares, right? It works. We'll be discussing the Canadian Cube film and its two sequels, Cube2, Hypercube, and Cube0. So let's use our boots to test for traps and dive in. So we'll be doing those three movies, Cube, Cube2, and Cube0. Cube, 97?
97,
right? 1997? Yeah. So I'll let you do the recap there.
Yeah, so I mean, let's call the spade that these movies are essentially rooms with, I think there's like 5 hole traps in the entire movie that you actually see people get killed in. But essentially we are introduced to a group of people waking up in a cube, or in a bright room that is a cube. And I think they said it's 14 feet tall, 14 feet wide.
Well, 14-foot cube, yes.
Yes. So yeah, like I said, we are introduced to, for some reason I can't remember her name right off the top of my head anymore. Watch all of these in way too quick succession. First we meet a guy who wakes up and goes into a blood red room, and then boom, he becomes Swiss cheese or cubed cheese.
Yeah.
Just think of the laser grid from the hallway scene in Resident Evil, but this time with cheese wire, right? He gets pretty sliced to diced pretty quickly. And fun fact, he does play Death in Supernatural. He is a horror icon in a lot of horror stuff. I think his name was Alderson. I don't think it ultimately matters.
Alderson. Fun fact, all of the people in Cube are named after famous prisons.
Okay.
So, there's a guy named Quentin, named after San Quentin.
Yeah.
There's the girl named Levin, who is named after Leavenworth.
Yes.
A lady named Holloway. That's a UK women's prison, Holloway prison. Rennes, that's a famous French prison. Was it Kazakh? That's one in I think Russia.
Yeah.
And then is there one more?
I
think that's it.
Worth?
Oh, Worth. No. Worth. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's another one.
Yeah. I see the prison connections now. Yeah. Yeah. So then, anyway, we are, kind of brought up to, speed. I would say that I don't know who you want to call the main person. I wouldn't call anyone the main person at this point.
No, it's an ensemble.
Yeah. So, the idea is essentially 5 people in the search of an exit. I think altogether there's 7 in this cube at this point in time. One's already dead. So then we do meet a group of 5 that eventually all lead up into a room. We have, a divorced police officer who really plays the tough guy. We have a student. We have Ren, who people immediately recognize his names. Like, oh man, he's escaped like 7 different prisons before. Worth, played by David Hewlett, for who don't know, was in Stargate SG-1, Stargate Atlantis, Rise of the Planet of the Apes. So Canadian actor. And the free clinic doctor for the time being. So they're kind of realizing they're kind of going around there. And they're like, hey, we're going to follow Ren around. He seems to know what he's doing. Like, how are we going to do this stuff? And they see that he has his boots tied together, and he tosses them into a room to test if it's clear or not, because it's at this point in time seemingly that either pressure plates or movement or just some sort of weight for most of the traps, I would say. And
well, those are the only traps they've encountered thus far.
Correct. Yes. Yeah, so, and they're like, oh, what are we going to do for water? And he gives them to, like, well, suck on your button. It'll keep the saliva going. As they're kind of going around, they're, like I said, just, saying clear and going based off of that. Kind of just picking a direction. Not any really place to go, just kind of where there's no traps, 2 traps.
Well, they basically come to the conclusion that there has to be an end to it.
Yes.
This is made by someone. There has to be an end to it. It can't be that big because otherwise it'd be impossible to hide. So they're just going to go in one continual direction and try to find the edge.
Assuming they can.
Well, they don't. I mean, obviously they don't know anything. They don't know why they're in there. They don't remember anything.
Right. Yeah. They kind of know their names, and that's about it. And they do hear some strange rumblings, not as much as the second one, but there's some, let's say, power spikes-ish. Yeah, so they said they're following Ren, that just kind of move together. And then eventually, Ren's like, hey, this is clear. He goes in there, and, well, I don't remember what it was, the heat of his body.
Well, unknown.
Yeah.
Whatever it was, the boot didn't catch it. He went in there and got
acid spray.
Yeah, he got sprayed with acid in his face.
Yeah, face melts pretty much to nothing. So anyway, they're going there. Then through all this traveling, let's say maybe an hour or 2 worth of going from the room, they finally realize, hey, there's numbers on every entryway. And we find out that the student is a mathematician going to school for math, and she's like, oh, these are all factors of prime numbers.
Well, no, not yet. At first, she's like, these are coordinates.
Right.
These are coordinates on a grid. So therefore, if it's a giant cube, as it seems to be, because there's it's a cube and there's a door on each side of the cube, and whatever door you open, there's another cube on that side. So
correct.
It's a big giant 3-dimensional space. So she's thinking that these numbers, because there's 3 of them, are coordinates inside of this space to where they are. And she's trying to figure out what that means. And eventually, after figuring out kind of like she tries to figure out a map, and she can't really make sense of it because the numbers are too big.
Right.
And then eventually she figures out that, it looks like, after looking at the ones that were trapped, because I think they got to a cube that I think all the rooms were trapped except for the one they came from. And that's when she's like looking, and she finds out that they're all factors or prime numbers.
Yeah.
No, yeah, they were all prime numbers. So she figures out if they're prime numbers or not, and then prime numbers means that it's safe.
Yes.
So then they move forward with that, and they seem to be doing well with that for a while, and then they find
right.
Kazan, who's the autistic guy.
Right, yeah. The prime numbers are traps. Yeah, they're exploring, and they find Kazan, who, as you said, he's autistic. The cop does want to bring him around just because he views him as a hindrance. Cop is getting pretty unhinged already at this point in time. Annoyed.
Well, I mean, if you're trapped in a place that you don't know how you got there or why, and you don't know these people that are with you, and then you start finding out the things that he finds out, like he finds out that the one guy, Worth, actually worked on this thing.
Yes, he designed the doors,
the outer shell. He made the sarcophagus or outer shell for it, and that's how they're able to determine how big it is.
Right, determine it's 26. Yeah, so 26 by 26 by 26.
14. Cube 2 is 26.
it's only 14 cubes. I thought it was 26 cubes wide.
No, that's the cube 0 is the one that's letters that goes 26.
Okay. I thought for some reason it was 26 cubes across. I thought that's how she did that, but okay. But yeah, so essentially, yeah, they figure that out. They're going through the prime number, prime number versus not prime numbers. They're doing it. They kind of realize, okay, this room is cleared for safe, and the cop goes in there, and it turns out to be trapped. He kind of gets like a little bit of a wire harness, like kind of almost like the wire from the poor guy in the Jigsaw, like the plastic rope or plastic noose kind of gets him a little bit. But as they look out, and he's like, okay, well, this isn't working. She's like, well, something's changed. And so, they figure out all the stuff, that how many rooms it could potentially be. And she goes, well, this isn't working, kind of, but she's like, these numbers are getting too difficult. And then Kazak is like, he was able to say how many factors are, 1, 2, 1, 2, stuff like that. So we discussed this before, is kind of the idiot savant and the unfortunately autistic superpower that we discuss in a lot of these movies. We find out that maybe he was, taught this to be able to memorize all the stuff, because he always asks for gumdrops, and where it's like, I'll give you, all the boxes of gumdrops you want. He's like, well, they come in bags. So he's like, all right, I'll get you all that stuff. So kind of following their methodology, they do find a way to the outer shell. And like, okay, and so the free clinic doctor's like, I'm gonna go out there and swing and see if I can reach something. And you see it outside, and it's just a ginormous, place. I don't ever see the ledge that she's trying to swing to. Do you?
She's trying to swing to the outer frame because, again, they figured out that the cubes inside, there's one cube space between them and the wall.
Yes.
So she's trying to swing out that far to touch the wall.
Right.
To see if there's a hole in the wall or some way to get through the wall.
Yeah, and they tied all their clothes together, and she's on it because she's the lightest.
Second lightest.
Well, second lightest. She couldn't do it, and because she made snide remarks at the cop, at Quentin, she's trying to swing, and they goes there, and he just drops her. It's like, oh, I couldn't grab onto her. Well, she's dead. She fell into who knows how far.
He saw her as a threat because she was a doctor, and she was smart, and she was challenging him on his alpha shit.
Yes.
And so he didn't like that. So yeah, as he is degrading, sanity, he decides to take the opportunity to let her go.
Right. So then it's Worth, Kazan, Quentin, Levin.
Yeah. And then
Holloway's dead.
Yeah. So then they go to sleep, and then Quentin goes straight up like, pervy alpha, and decides to take Levin, who's a young, female attractive student.
Yes.
He like grabs her and like whisks her away. Like, you and me could get out of here. We need to leave this dead weight behind.
Right.
So yeah, then they go through like a chase through the whole thing, and then they kind of, fight back and forth. Essentially they get to this cube that they found out when they were looking at the, whatever the coordinates earlier. They found out that this cube is the only one that is like a bridge.
Right.
Because it was like one number higher or whatever. So they figured out this is the bridge. They got back to that one, and they have a final kind of showdown in there.
Right. And then they realize that, I think the room they start off, because they eventually get back to Ren.
Yeah.
Is melt to face. Like, we were at the main spot really the entire time.
Well, they found Ren when they were going through there, but the one that they found out they were in the first room was Levin found the piece of her glasses that fell out.
Right.
Which happened in the very first room that they were in. So that's how they knew that they were in the first room. But yeah, so they basically get in there like, okay, we're here. We just got to wait for it to move into position. And then,
we're good. We're good. Yeah, but then
Well, then
you know,
they get stabbed.
right? She
by
gets
Quentin.
yeah, yeah. Quentin stabs Levin with the handle of the door. He attacks. He also stabs Worth as well. You know, after he had fallen, you know, they opened the kind of the bottom and let him fall through. And some of these people fell. Yeah, that is 14 feet straight down into hard metal. Some on their head, some on their feet. There's regardless, they're not going to be a-okay.
I mean, it's possible. Depends on how you
Possible.
land or what you land on.
Yeah. So yeah, eventually they realize, you know, as you know, they get to the spot, you know, Levin's dead, Worth is bleeding out, and Quentin's trying to stop Kazan from getting to the bridge. He eventually the bridge opens up, he's able to get out, and Worth kind of holds him back and gets him cut in half as the bridge cube moves away. Everyone inside's dead. Kazan walks out in the bright light. End of movie.
Yep.
I'm trying to remember if I saw this. I didn't see it in theaters. I think I saw it when it came on the home video release. And I thought this was when I first saw it, you know, I thought this was a very interesting movie. Was it gory? Not so much. Could it have been almost a sci-fi TV movie? Yes. But you know, I thought it was very intriguing, the idea of it, and there's really not much lore. There's no background information. Really, it's just you're literally stuck in there with the same knowledge, really, as everyone else. I thought it was interesting to have that. You know, do you recall your first thoughts on this?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is the kind of movie I like. There's a lot of movies that share this same kind of format,
Mm-hmm.
and I really like that format. I don't think there's any movie that follows this format that I don't like. There's some that I like more than others, but I like all of them that fall into this. And this, I believe I watched, the first time I watched Cube, I believe it was after Cube2 and Cube0 were already out.
Oh.
Because I remember I rented it from Blockbuster,
Mm-hmm.
and then I liked it a lot, and then I went back and I got Cube2 and Cube0.
Okay.
It may have been later on or something, but I'm pretty sure it was. I watched them all like right in a row.
Nice.
Or at least pretty closely.
Yeah. I mean, especially the first Cube is something that, you know, if growing up after it came out, if we were watching sci-fi or something and it come on, I would never turn away from it because I was just like, okay, I'm gonna watch this. I like it enough to have it on often enough, or I never thought, like, you know, I'm not going to watch this at this point in time. If it was just happened to be on TV, I'd watch it.
No, you know what? No, now that I think about it, I did rent Cube from Blockbuster, but I don't think I watched Cube2 and Cube0. This was a few years later when I watched Cube again.
Mm-hmm.
And this is back when Netflix did the, you know, discs to your house.
Right.
And when I searched for a Cube, I saw that there was more than one. And so that I rented all three of them and got them all at the same time.
Nice.
I believe is what it was. Because I was going to say, because the last one came out in 2004.
Correct.
I know I had seen Cube before that. Because I remember what house I was living in when I watched it for the first time. And I lived in that place between 2000 and 2002.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure it was like 2000 or 2001 maybe. Because if the second one came out in 2002,
yes,
that would make sense because it would be before that one came out. But then when I went to rewatch it later, that's when I remember watching it. I think that's how.
Okay.
But yeah, no. Again, there's a lot of movies like this that I've always liked. Again, I've always liked them ever since the very first Twilight Zone episode, which is the first instance I can remember seeing of this pattern.
Yes.
And I've liked, you know, I mean, they don't necessarily follow that, but it's the same template.
Right.
And I love that old Twilight Zone episode, and I like every movie that does it. I have not found one yet. I'm sure we can find one.
I'm sure if we search hard enough, we could find one.
But every one that I've found so far, again, there's some that I like more than others, but almost all the movies that have fallen into this.
Nice.
We'll actually get into more of these, not next week, but the following week.
We will.
It'll be a bunch of movies with the same basic template, only they're not a franchise. This one is, a Cube because there is a franchise. There's 3 of them, so you put them all together.
Yes.
But there'll be a group of other ones that are not in a franchise. They're totally different movies, but they all follow that same template. We'll get there.
Yep. So, what are your highlights of this movie?
Again, I mean, I just like that concept.
Yeah.
I like that template. I think it's great. I especially like it when there's nefarious stuff going on and you don't know who to trust, and you start finding out little things about people that kind of skew you one way or the other, like, ooh, maybe this guy's bad, ooh, maybe this guy's oh man, maybe he has a bad thing about him, but he's still worthy of being a good person, blah blah, that kind of stuff.
Right.
So yeah, the characters are fun. I thought they were very well done. Yeah, they're a little over the top sometimes, but again, when you're in like a bottle episode like this,
this is a 100% bottle episode.
Yeah, you kind of have to. Like, you have to show that escalation, and you have to show that that just breaking point of them just going off the rails. So you have to see that, and it's acting. Doing that subtly for an hour and a half is kind of hard. If there's more of a set piece, yeah, a lot easier to do. It's literally they're in a cube.
Yes.
When they filmed this movie, they only had one cube. They filmed it all in one cube. They would all the cubes that would take place in the same color, they would film all together.
Right. And
then they would stop for the day, and they would come in, switch out the light panels, and then the next day it'd be we're doing green rooms today, or we're doing blue rooms today. And that's how they would do it. So there are a couple of scenes where they're looking through a door into the cube, and you can see cube behind it. That's literally just one wall.
Right.
Behind them, and then the one cube, and that was it. That was the whole set. So it's they were in that one cube for weeks. So you have all those people just in one cube for weeks. It was it's just an interesting concept. I like the prison named thing. That's fun. It's kind of funny how this is the era where I was into conspiracy theories. Okay, this is we're talking 2000. This is pre 9/11. This is back when conspiracy theories were fun. Right. It was they're interesting stories. They're you could go deep dives on weird places on the internet and shit like that, but it didn't get crazy and violent like it does now. There's people were looking for evidence and stuff back then, and obviously there's people with dubious evidence that are I figured it all out, but everybody knows they're conspiracy theories and crack. That's where conspiracy theorists get that crackpot vibe from, right?
Right. Yeah.
And yeah, unfortunately today it's evolved into this mess. I can't even get into that. I don't even know what to even start with that. But this is back when conspiracy theories were fun. And so in this one, they're talking about, it's conspiracy theories, is the government behind the scenes. It's more
aliens.
Fun. Right. Yeah. It's more of a fun thing, of an interesting, maybe it is, obviously we're here. It's got to be something to it. Whereas nowadays it's just sad, but
yeah,
it used to be fun. What about you? What are your high points?
Yeah, I mean, having for it being a bottle movie and the environment is metal, and you know what I mean? They do, yes. Do they have to be the over the top, not like the way we discussed with Don't Look in the Basement, where they got the local theater group to be it. They still, yes, were they still caricatures of it? Yes, they were, but they're the archetypes for a reason. And there's that archetype has to exist, I feel, in these 5 people in search of exit. You know what I mean? You have generally an older person, you have unfortunately the alpha male, you have a beta male, you have the young female, and usually someone with some sort of handicap, whether they're heavyweight, whether they have mental illnesses, just something that is considered to be dead weight and an undesirable trait, as seen as a hindrance to the rest of the group.
Right. Well, yeah, a lot of these things are just, story elements because they're going to play off of each other, right?
Right.
And that's basically, they have to have some of these, well, they don't have to, but they put the archetypes in there to make sure that there's friction.
Yes. Especially with the alpha males, there's always going to be.
Well, yeah, alpha male is like, of course, they go towards the attractive female, even if they're, way out of their league or way younger or whatever it is. They're gonna try to like gravitate towards them,
right?
And they're going to dismiss the older woman, the beta male, and they're also going to be, hate the person that has some form of, whatever disability or disadvantage that they see as dragging them down,
as a burden,
holding them back. Yeah,
right.
So the alpha male is usually the person that is the ends up becoming the antagonist eventually.
Oh yeah, because you have to be, because the room is not inherently evil. It's just
right.
there.
Well, yeah. Without exterior forces working on you, eventually in that kind of situation, it eventually works its way out from with it.
Yeah. And like I said, I am a David Hewlett fan, because I like Stargate SG-1. I do like Stargate Atlantis. So I think this might have been the first thing I saw him in. And like I said, it's an interesting concept, and with the no information, basically, we get no answers. Is it a bad ending? We don't know. We can assume so. But yeah, it worked well without having the lore. So those are my highlights.
You're all in with your low points, or you want me to go?
I'll go with my low points. More traps, I think, would be good. I
think if they had more traps, then the movie would just be about traps.
Right. I'll get into that point when we recap this for an interesting crossover. The effects aren't very good. You can tell this is a low budget movie, and they kind of do more of a tell, don't show type scenario. It's more implied, especially in the second one. I'm not sure I agree. We discussed this before, that unfortunately making autistic people have these superpowers, and I feel that Zach has that flaw that we discuss a lot too. He doesn't have to be the one that's good at math, or he could be the only one that's good at math. But we had two people that were able to do it. Yeah, and the whole alpha male thing, I can't stand it. Honestly, he makes it like, yes, you're supposed to hate him, but it's just, I'm sick of that archetype. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, autism magic just, it drives me crazy. It was basically like Rain Man came out, right?
Yeah.
And then everybody's like, oh, autism, that gives you special powers. Yes. Oh, you can't communicate with the outside world and you're all weird with things that you like and stuff, but you have this magic that lets you do something crazy.
Yes.
Like in Rain Man, he's able to count and stuff like that. And this one, he's able to do like prime factorizations. I don't know. I'm not a mathematician. I don't know what that is, but I assume it's very hard. So he could just do it in his head. But again, we get stuff like this, like the Predator, the same thing. The autistic kid has magic powers. It's like every time there's an autistic kid, they have a magic power to offset it. And again, I think it's just very unfair to autistic people, because then people get this thing of like, oh yeah, you're all stuck in your own head and shit, but I bet you can count. And that's, a lot of them can't. And so you're letting everybody down, it's like, that sucks. Just let people be people. Just leave them alone.
They all have to be the idiot savant.
Right. It's like, they just throw them in this stupid trope and role. And I was, this is an early version of it. This is still, at the time this came out, it was still relatively okay. It wasn't quite overdone at this point.
Yeah.
I think some of the later ones it was. But this one, I don't think it was. But it still sucks.
Yeah, and we'll discuss his situation when we finish Cube 0. obviously.
Yeah. I really don't.
Right?
I don't like that, but we'll get there. But yeah, no, I agree with just about everything else. Quentin alpha male type stuff. The CGI was obviously bad,
Yes.
but it was fun.
Yeah.
It was bad but fun. They didn't rely too heavily on it.
Not like
You know
the
what I
next
mean?
one.
There was just a few things that they did that they wanted to show traps that they could not physically do.
Right.
So they basically made some CGI. But I mean, they did do a lot of practical stuff.
They did.
And that was, again, it's bad, but it's still fun.
Yeah.
So, do destroyed boots out of 10 this one?
Yes.
Because there's a lot of destroyed boots. So how many destroyed boots out of 10 would you give this?
I do like this movie. Is it one of my favorites? No, but can I put it on and watch it? Absolutely. I will give it 8. 8 destroyed boots out of 10.
Yeah, I'm around there. I'll give it let's say 7.25 destroyed boots out of 10.
Okay, so you still have the laces.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we have Cube² Hypercube, which came out in 2002.
Yes.
And this one kind of is like it's a sequel. Let's do it bigger, better, more expensive kind of thing. It's basically how this one ends up looking. It's more of the same, only this time there are even more characters. This time, of course, there are even more cubes. Even though I think the cube looks cheaper in this one than it does in the first one. The first one had kind of like a darker kind of mechanical vibe, to where this one is, I don't know, it feels like, very clean. Like everything's in a clean room. So anyway, we basically, we get the kind of meeting up of all these different characters. Like I said, I think there's like 7. I think it ends up being 7 people. So we get our alpha male guy, who is a private detective who's supposedly looking for this girl. He lies to everybody about who he is and what he is for a while, but eventually we find out that's who he really is. There's a woman who's a psychotherapist. There's an old lady who is senile or has Alzheimer's or something, but
Dementia,
she was a theoretical mathematician. But because she's like in and out of lucidity, she's of limited help. There's Jerry the engineer, who's kind of like a happy-go-lucky, engineer type guy. There's Max,
who likes horror novels.
Right. There's Max, who's a game designer / kind of like wannabe hacker.
Yeah.
There's Julia, who is the I guess kind of like the femme fatale, right? She's literally wearing the red dress. And she's an attorney. Who else? Oh, the blind girl, Sasha.
Yes.
Who just says, I'm a blind girl and I'm a student. That's all I am.
Yep.
So I don't know how many that was. There's a bunch. I think that's everybody though.
Yeah.
So anyway, so this one, the cube is, they go for quite a while, but it looks like it's, I guess we could just say it's quantum based, right? So like sometimes you open up the door and sometimes it's one cube. Sometimes you can go back into the same cube. Sometimes, you disappear. Like sometimes somebody will open up one door and it closes and then they'll open it up again and they'll be in a different door in the same room, like, teleporting around. So basically this one is like, it's not a mechanical maze like the first one was. This one is more like a quantum maze. So where it's like, who knows where you are? You're somewhere lost in time and space.
Right, because we're introduced to Max. He opens like every side of the cube essentially,
Right.
like in like succession, like
right. And they're like,
it's
"How are you
he's hitting
moving
it.
so fast?" Yeah, he's not.
And
He's
he's
just opening a different door.
right.
And there's they meet an old guy who hangs himself. And he hangs himself because they find a name tag. He worked at the Department of Defense.
Yeah.
And apparently he was involved in the design of this thing. And he had a briefcase full of numbers that was supposed to help him navigate. And they took all his numbers away. So he basically just gave up because he was like, there's no way I can get out of here without my numbers. So he tries to hang himself. And they save him, but only a limited amount of time because he like refuses to be saved. Yeah. He like handcuffs himself to the wall. They try to save him, and this is where the traps come in. The traps are not, again, mechanical traps. They're like, who knows, quantum traps.
They're physics based, like
right
pulses and like
I don't know. They're not really physics. Like, what is the wall closing in on them? It's just like it's just like an evil wall. Who knows?
I was thinking of like kind of like the door that you're able to walk through in the movie Doom. So particle physics, where you're able to like have a wall that's like atoms are split enough apart that they'd go through you and essentially wipe you out of existence. That's why I took it as. But
I didn't wipe it out of existence. But it just like aged them super fast.
Right.
It was like it went over the guy's briefcase, and we saw it like it didn't destroy the briefcase. It was just there. It was all beat up.
It like went inside the cells and destroyed it from the inside, aging it. I
think it just super aged it.
Okay. Yeah. Time dilation, though.
Well, as we see later on, there's like time dilation where certain cubes have moved faster or slower. Again, like, sometimes a person will go into a cube and the door closes and they open the door back up and it's a different cube. The person's gone. Again, so it's again, this is a quantum based cube to where that's, who knows what's going on. So anyway, they're going through it and they end up finding, there's a dead physicist who was like going to win a Nobel Prize for physics or something. And he had all these numbers written all over his body and all over the walls and everything in his cube. And he was trying to, I guess, figure out where he was or what the way out is or whatever it is. And they find a number and it's like 60659. But there's also all kinds of other letters and numbers and binary digits and stuff. So the 60659 is the only constant.
Right.
There's all kinds of different versions of it. And they find this all over the different cubes everywhere. Yeah. So Jerry was like marking the cubes with numbers that, which numbers they went into, just counting up from 1. And sometimes they go back and they're in the same cubes again. Sometimes they go in cubes and like we started to see like they're slipping through time as he goes into another cube and he finds his watch.
Right.
Which was engraved from his wife to him, and he finds an exact replica of his watch.
Which opens up
things. Right.
the parallel universe, the multi-earth, multiverse.
Yeah. Right. So things are going on. So they're all kind of moving along until they find this one trap, which like it starts off as like a little diamond spinning in the sky, which only the blind girl can hear.
Right.
And that's how they know it's there. And then it basically turns into like, I don't know, a big spinning blades or something.
It chops, it slices, it julienne's fry.
Right. So essentially like eviscerates Jerry.
Yeah.
He's gone. Alpha Male ends up taking Max, Julia, and Mrs. What's her name? Mrs. Peasley or something.
Something like that, yeah.
But anyway, the older lady. So he takes the 3 of them and goes in one way, and then the psychotherapist and Sasha the blind girl go a different way. And as they're going through, Alpha Male guy basically starts like torturing the old lady because she turns out that she worked for this like old, weapons manufacturer that is suspected of making this thing.
Izon, is that how you say it?
Right. Yeah. So they'd say like she works for Izon, and so they think she knows more than she's letting on. So this guy tries to kill her. They see like a version of her, again, where they start to see doubles of themselves. They see a version of her, go, oh, hello. And then he comes up and stabs her and he's like, don't listen to her. She doesn't know what she's saying.
And then he gets crystalled through the...
Yeah. And then it's actually in the same room. His copy gets his head cut off. And so that like freaks him out. And essentially, I think that's the point that he breaks.
Oh, absolutely.
Is when he sees himself die, he just like breaks. So he essentially like holds down the old lady, trying to like force her to say anything. Of course, she doesn't know anything. So like the same trap that killed him when they looked at the other door triggers, but he manages to get out.
Right.
And the old lady just dies in there. And then Max and Julia end up getting away from him by like moving faster. They end up going through a couple of cubes where time moves faster. They basically get away from him, so he loses them. They go into another cube where they like decide to just bone.
Yep.
And then they just die. They disappear.
Right, because
they're gone from the story.
They're in a sped up time dilation. They're like decayed corpses still intertwined with each other.
Right. Yeah, they find them later, but yeah, they're gone from the story. So now we're basically just alpha male, Sasha, and psychotherapist lady.
Right.
So they're trying to figure out a way out. Basically, they find out that Sasha is this hacker person that they were talking about through the whole thing. Like Max and Jerry knew about this hacker person who's like a legend that supposedly designed this thing, because they find out it's a hypercube, a tesseract, that it's like, it's whatever. It's a cube, a fourth dimension cube.
Right.
So I don't know what you'd even call that. Well, I guess you call it a tesseract. I don't know what you call it, but whatever. So it's a cube that goes into the fourth dimension, which is time. But that's why everything is all timey-wimey, confusing stuff.
Which they said it might not be time, but it's time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Nobody knows what's going on. So, they find out it's her. She is the one that designed this thing, and she designed it for some unnamed, government entity.
Right.
And she was trying to blow the whistle on them because she found out that they were putting people inside. And she was like, no, I made it for you as a theoretical thing. I didn't think you would actually put people in here.
Right. So, and Max was a computer program that made a video game about time dilated rooms, and they took that and put it into here.
Right. Yeah. So he didn't write the whole thing, but a piece of his ended up in there. So anyway, so they were going to silence her, so she jumped into the cube to get away from them. So yeah, she was just pretending like she was a defenseless blind girl, but really she's the hacker that created this whole thing.
Right.
So anyway, so right after that happens, she dies.
Yep.
So then it's just psychotherapist lady and alpha male. And basically alpha male gets lost in time, more or less. And he meets up with Jerry a few times and just ends up killing him. And he keeps like taking his watch and like trophies from people that he's killing. He ends up finding the girl that he was trying to look for as a private detective. He finds her and he's like, oh, it's really you. And then he kills her.
Who knows how many times?
Yeah, again, who knows? It's a lot of times. But he meets up with the psychotherapist lady again, and he looks a little older. He's got, like, again, all these watches and trophies and, like, name tags and stuff all over him. Like, he's obviously, like, covered in blood. Like, he's lost his mind. And he tries to grab her. She ends up stabbing him in the eye. And after she stabs him in the eye, then, like, she turns around, and, like, he's literally there, but now he's got old gray hair.
Oh, he's like got 20 years older.
Yeah, he's got like even more name tags and watches and stuff. And he, oh no, sorry, he kills Sasha at that point. Saying like whatever, it doesn't matter anyway. So at this point they realize that the hypercube is now imploding because they start to see all the different writings and stuff and all the different things that were in all the other rooms start all appearing in one room.
Right. So everything merging into one.
Right. So everything is merging into one, and that's when she figures out the 60659 was not a whatever coordinate like they thought it was. It's the time that it was going to stop, and it's literally 6:06 p.m. 6:06 p.m. with the 59 seconds.
Yeah.
Is the point where it's going to crash. So they end up, because everything has shrunk down to one cube, when they open up the door, it's now just like this empty nothingness.
Yep.
And so she figures out that when it hits 6:06:59, she has to jump through the hole, and then that she'll get out, and she does.
Yes.
And so she gets out. She's the only one who survives, and then now there's like these government agents that are there. We find out
on a big platform of water.
Right. Yeah. We found out that she was like the sleeper agent in there. Like she went in there to look for Sasha.
Yep.
He's like, "Oh, great, you found everything. Here's Sasha's necklace, which has the key to whatever this." And they're like, "Great, good job." And then they shoot her in the back of the head.
Damn.
And then that's it.
Yes.
Movie over.
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, I think this is. I think it's only the second time I watched it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Not as good as the first one.
No, I mean it's not bad. It's okay. It is. Yeah. I know I've seen it before. Like I know I've seen it before. I remembered little bits and pieces, but for the most part, I didn't remember anything about this movie. Strangely, I remembered more about Cube0 than I remembered about this movie. Yeah, so it's I mean, it's okay. I mean, I guess it's I mean, there's things that I like, things that I dislike. But I mean, overall, I don't think it was bad.
Yeah, for me, after when Cube happens to be on, I'm like, all right, I'll watch Cube 2. I mean, I will watch it. Like I said, it's not a horrible follow up. And obviously they expanded on the lore a bit more, potentially, on it. We don't know.
Well, they did, but again, like in the wrong way.
Yes.
Again, it's like, okay, the first one, it was built by someone. It's a physical object. It was built by someone for, I mean, some kind of purpose. Who knows? Maybe it's just to torture people. We don't know. But it was a physical thing. So like you can find out who physically made it or where it physically is.
Yes.
Now, Cube 2, it's not. It's like you're in a theoretical space-time thing.
You're in a tesseract. You're in a Flurkin.
So like you're not. Yeah, you're not. There's nothing physical to find. There's nothing physical to to discover. Like again, I don't. Why would it bother having like letters and numbers for like all that stuff? Whatever. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But yeah, I just think there's again, I don't. It's not a bad film. I just don't know if it necessarily expanded on the first one in the way it should have been.
Right. Do you want me to do my highlights first?
Go for
it. Let's face it. If you're gonna die in a time dilation field, Max went out the best way. He didn't know it. He did not know he was rapidly aging that we see.
Well, they didn't rapidly age at all.
Right. Yeah.
That's like their scene. Like they start like boning and then they're like spinning around in the air. And then it cuts away. And we don't see anything else from them until later on when everything starts converging and then we see them like corpses floating around.
Yeah. Like I said, they had an idea behind this, and I know in the first one they had a mathematician on there trying to figure out all this, the height and what the cube and stuff would look like. I don't know if they got a quantum mechanical engineer or quantum physicist involved with this.
Right, but I'm saying is it wasn't a physical thing, so there's nothing to find out. Again, like how do you figure out the theory of something when you're inside of it?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, again, it's a different concept. From the outside, it looks the same, right? They're different cubes. They're moving from cube to cube, blah, blah. Some are trapped, different people you don't know. All the, similar things. But I think that the actual cube itself is totally different. As the first one, it's like, this is a physical thing.
Right.
The numbers that tell you where you are, or the factorizations, all that stuff. It's like hard numbers, hard facts. Like these are, they might be moving around and shit. There might not be a way out, but at least it's hard physical, like science. Like this one, it goes into the quantum realm, that's fine. I enjoy that part of it, but as far as a sequel to Cube, I don't know if it got to that point.
No, like I said, I like the idea of the time dilation being a video game in the quantum part of it. I do enjoy that. But like I said, you're right. It hinders it as a lore building. But I do also the fact like, they, like, hey, this is, all done on water where, a lot of people would say that a lot of quantum stuff and, the building of space that's not really there, and whatever you want to call it, works out well. I like Jerry, but poor Jerry getting killed a lot. Those are. So they have interesting. They had interesting ideas and topics, and it wasn't just government aliens. It was is augmented reality simulations and stuff like that too. So I do like that it didn't always point to the same thing, a prison essentially.
Right, and again, like this movie by itself, I think is good. I think it's interesting. Yeah. I think it's fun. Again, I like quantum, math and teleportation and all that kind of thing. I mean, it's super interesting. And I just don't think it matches as a sequel to the first one. It's from the outside, it does, but again, the real core concept does not.
All right. What are your highlights then?
But yeah, the concept of this one, I do like. Again, I do like that. I just don't think it's good in relation to the first one. I mean, I like that there was like alternate timelines and alternate realities in there. I mean, that was fun.
Yeah.
So they'd find like, dead versions of themselves that didn't survive previous timelines. And, the alpha male dude kills people, like kills the same people like multiple times. I don't know what you're going to gain from that, but he keeps doing that. And it's funny that he keeps repeating it. I mean, I do like how he has his timeline murder trophies,
Oh, yeah.
Like that was, I mean, great. I mean, how unhinged can you be?
Right.
You keep killing people and then wearing their trophies on them. It's like he's like the starting version of what the hell is that movie? Pandorum.
Yes.
So it's like you're stuck in a ship, and this is like the first stage of the creatures that end up running the ship hundreds of years later. Like this is like their first stage.
There you go. I like
of like running through and just killing people because there's literally nothing else of value around. So you have to kill other people to eat.
Yes.
But yeah, I thought that was fun. I like the kind of artistic bent that it has. Where, it like, again, shows bodies spinning through space and, dying. It's, again, it had an interesting art house aspect to it. Like a lot of the camera work, they're filming things upside down and sideways and, again, just to kind of make you feel as out of place as the people in the cubes feel.
Right. Oh, I also do enjoy that you're able to open a door on the side and you'd be at the top of the cube or at the bottom of the cube as opposed to just a linear path.
Right. Yeah. Like literally gravity changes.
Yes.
As you go into different ones. So yeah, it's like time, space, relatively all these things change in each individual cube, which again, concept's great. I don't think it's necessarily a great concept as a sequel to the second one.
Yeah.
Do you want me to roll in the lows or you want to go first?
Why don't you roll in the lows?
They don't have any uniforms.
Nope.
They're wearing their regular clothes. And they're like, literally, the dude has a knife. Like they're all wearing their wedding rings.
My knife.
Yeah, they're wearing their wedding rings and watches and like they have name tags and shit, like all that stuff. Like they took some of their stuff, but not all of it. Why? What's the point of that?
Right.
Like again, like this movie is great by itself, but I just don't think it stands up as a sequel to Cube. There's just too many differences. And two, there's no colors. The cubes are all the same color.
It is like insanity white.
Right. And that's it. There's like no, like at least the first one, they're moving into the same fucking cube, but at least it has different colors. So you get the idea that, hey, maybe you are moving into a different cube. Where in this one, it's like it all looks identical all the time.
Yeah. Right.
And I think the acting in this one is just kind of over the top and cheesy to where the first one is, they're caricatures for sure.
Yeah.
But and again, when you're literally looking at 5 people for an hour and a half, like you have to do that sometimes. This one, it was like a little too much. Like it was like everyone was speaking in their like cheesy version of themselves.
Yeah.
And after a while, it gets old. Alzheimer's as comic relief, that hurts.
Yep.
Like that sucks. Like you can make it funny, but it is not. It's not funny. Like real Alzheimer's is not It's not funny like that. Like all the times that she just like, oh, isn't that weird? Oh, I can't find my dog. And then she like just peaceably walks away and forgets, about that she ever said that kind of shit. Alzheimer's is not like that in real life, man.
No.
People get angry and violent and shit because they're very confused as to what's happening and things go around. That's what they say with Alzheimer's people. Never tell them they're wrong because they'll freak out.
Right.
Again, I think there's too many characters in this one. Again, like I think 5 characters works out, 6 maybe if, they're kind of in and out how they did it the first one. I think that works. This one, there's just way too many. Way too many. I think that's why some of them just like killed off Max and Julia because they didn't like, what are we going to do with these people?
Right.
What's their point? They did like the thing that they were, supposed to say is like, oh, I'm an attorney for this evil company. Okay. Well, I made this game. They used part of my game for this thing. Oh, that sucks. Okay, now we've done our part. Kill them off.
Yep.
Like they literally it was no point in anything. Again, like the effects in this one are pretty atrocious. I mean, they like literally
They're
like freeze
awful.
frame.
They're awful.
Yeah, it's like they literally like freeze frame. You can see that nothing is moving. Like, okay, like I've watched enough things to know when people just move in place, but they're not, things are moving around them. Or when you literally just hit pause on the screen and they don't move. Like when she jumps through the hole in the floor, like it literally, they just pause the film and then just like move her body into the hole.
Oh, yes,
she doesn't even jump. It's like, what is that? Like, I understand you had limited budget, but like, dude, just, cut away or something.
We couldn't give her an actual hole to jump into.
Right. Oh, man. And I think the music in this one is just horrible. The first one, you don't notice it. There's some in the background, but it's just there to add some mood. It's not a lot. Like this one, it is just not good. Most of the time, it's not there at all. But when it is there, you notice it because it's way out of place.
Yes.
All right, that's it for me. What do you got?
The kills are atrocious. The FX are atrocious.
Yep.
We're almost... we are 12 years past, the flower in people's hair from it to make them seem older, but here it is again, on Alpha Male. It's the idea of it is, like I said, the idea of it is great. The execution of the idea was bad. The playing off, Alzheimer's or dementia as a gag, it's annoying. It's as annoying as anyone else with being disabled to be the laugh. It's still horrible regardless. Like why they're trying to figure out coordinates if there wasn't really a path. That didn't make any sense. Their traps were not. They didn't seem as brutal. Like it's not as mechanical. It wasn't as nasty. It's just like light-based attacks.
Right. Yeah. Like half the things that were happening, I was like, you guys don't even know if this is bad.
Right.
Like, you're just running away from it. Like you don't even know what it is.
Yeah.
And it's so amorphous in the movie. Like nobody knows what it is. It's like, okay, it's a fuzzy wall. Like, why is that so scary?
Right. The lore they added, we'll discuss the lore, probably recap at the end of Cube 0 because I have a theory based on some of the things they said. Interesting that they just kill their operative after getting out. I'm like, okay, well, they just kill her. And like, is anyone safe in that team? No. And the guy got a phone call from a old rotary phone, essentially, in the middle of a warehouse on a table that has no phone cord going to it. There's zero cables going to that
cable
phone.
might have been coming through the table leg or something.
Like, it felt so weird for it to be so advanced, and then we have that old ass phone.
Well, that's okay. This is the thing that always bothers me about these kind of movies, right? If things are sensitive to the point that people that are even like tangentially involved in them get shot when they're involved, the soldiers would not be there.
No.
Okay,
there's
because soldiers are just grunts, man.
Yeah.
Like any soldier that's just going to shoot whatever you tell him to shoot is a grunt, and you're not going to be able to contain that.
No.
You know, like, again, if he came out and there was like one dude in a suit standing next to him, like a bodyguard type guy, okay, I get it. Right? Like, this guy can be trusted, right? This guy is your dude that will never say anything. No, they had like a group, like a whole squad of soldiers there.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you're telling me all of these soldiers, like, everybody is just okay with this thing that murders people? And then like, this lady comes out with the thing you sent her in to get.
Who's one of you.
Yeah, does exactly what you tell her to do, says, sir, yes, sir, and then gets fucking shot in the back of the head. Again, why? Soldiers are people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's like, again, they always say like, oh, well, what if the government just takes over everything? I was like, well, you got to realize that, the army is made of real people.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, real people do not want to shoot their own neighbors and friends. So, like, a lot of those people are just going to opt out. And again, if you have an entire squad of soldiers, the likelihood of one of those, like, telling all to someone else going, hey, this is messed up, is extremely high.
Well, I mean, they heard your criticism and they fixed it for you in Cube0.
No, they didn't.
Well, they're programmed.
Huh. Well, supposedly. We don't know.
Supposedly.
They don't tell you what's going on.
Correct. Yeah, those are my low points. You want to go first for number of destroyed boots?
Sure. Again, I do like this movie. I just don't think it's a good sequel to Cube. It looks like it is, but I think the rough concepts it kind of, shoots and fails.
So are you gonna grade it based off of the Cube, or
Well, yeah, this is Cube2 Hypercube is the name of the movie. If they named it something like,
Hypercube,
it was just called Hypercube.
Yep,
that would be different, but it literally says Cube2.
Yes.
That's why I'm judging it harshly. But again, it's still a good movie. I mean, yeah, the effects are horrible, but the concepts of it are still fun. So I'll give it 5.75 destroyed boots out of 10.
Oh wow! So it does require drinking to rewatch it.
I mean, not really. I'm just, again, I'd probably take a whole point off for just, I don't think it fits thematically with the first one. But again, standing by itself, it's not a bad film.
That's fair.
Yeah, judging it by itself, yeah, I'd give it just under a 7 just by itself.
Yeah, I agree with the 1.5 down, so 6.5 destroyed boots out of 10 for me. It's a weird piece of movie. So, all right, Cube0.
Cube0 came out in 2004. Now,
which I'm pretty sure is straight to DVD. If I'm not mistaken.
Again, I never. Well, I mean, I never saw anything theatrical for any of these, but I don't think I ever even heard of anything's being in the theater. But this one takes a big turn from the other two, so where the other two were purely inside the cube.
Yes.
Right. The second one only had an outside scene for what? That was like a minute.
Right.
But it was at the very, very end. Now this one, probably at least half the movie takes place outside of the cube.
Oh, easily. The cube isn't the story. It's not the setting.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So it says Cube. So this is obviously Cube0. This is a prequel. So this is obviously like an earlier version of the cube. It looks rougher. Looks darker. It's got it doesn't have the polished edges of the other cubes. It looks like an industrial waste cube.
Right? And I'll say this right now: this cube seems like it'd been perfect for John Kramer.
Right. Industrial waste, old warehouse, rusty metal.
Yep.
Kind of cube, right? So okay, so we start off with our, Swiss cheese guy, like we do in most of these cube movies. Where we just show oh yeah, there's cubes, oh yeah, there's traps. And then we see two guys that are supervising everything that happens in the cube. So they have these computer systems where they literally watch people go through the cube.
Yes.
Now we find out a couple pieces of information. One being supposedly these people signed consent forms and they're in there by their own free will. Supposedly they're prisoners that were sentenced to death, and instead of finding their death through normal execution means, they decide
sign up for the experiment. Yeah,
they sign up for this experiment because there's a chance that they can get out and go free.
Right.
So that's what they do. But apparently, no one has ever seen anyone leave. We only get a little bit of information. Is there's I guess 2 normal exits, which are that they run, and then there's supposed to be some auxiliary exit that is a mystery that no one knows about, but supposedly you can get out that way.
Right.
So essentially, we have 2 guys, Wynn and Dodd.
Yes.
And they're the guys that are left over watching the cubes. Now there's 2 other desks in their little room because it's just a big room with file cabinets and shit, and they apparently they just live in this room. They do have a couple of conversations where they talk about other people's rooms, so maybe they have their own bedroom.
Yeah.
But it doesn't look like they ever leave this place.
Right. They talk about a guy who's on vacation, who's not there.
Right. Yeah, he's on vacation, and the other guy called in sick, but yet their bedrooms are in that area and they never leave. So maybe they're just programmed to be that dumb, or they just don't think that far into it, because obviously we know they can do memory manipulation, because in this version of the cube nobody remembers anything.
Right. We see nobody the process.
Sorry, what?
We see the process of them scanning their dreams and thoughts and contain it to a CD.
Well, that was just reading her dreams. That was just, they were just recording that for posterity, whatever. But yeah, before they put them in the cube, they erase their memories, so they can't even remember their own names.
Right.
And they put them in there. They brought the uniforms back for this one, so they put them in there with the uniform with their name on it. That's the only way they know their name, is because it's written on the shirt. Otherwise, they have no idea who they are, how they now, these other guys, again, they do know their names. They do know what's going on, but apparently there's a lot of other things they forgot, like what the outside world is actually like.
Right. They're when's the last time you saw the outside?
Right. Yeah, they don't know. They may never have, and they don't know because they've obviously done it. So the one guy, Dodd, is obviously been there longer.
Right.
And as we learn as time goes on, he knows the other 2 people are fucking dead.
Yes.
But he's trying to just tell him to be quiet, just play the game, or else you're going to be next, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to die. Just do what they tell you.
You don't want the people upstairs to
right.
do anything.
Right. So they just do what they tell you to do, and that's it. And they basically get orders that come down in this little tray on an elevator.
Right.
On a little magic feature piece of plastic paper or whatever the hell that is. And then they just do what they tell them to do. And we see that somebody reaches the exit room, and they find out, oh, look, it's the other guy that supposedly called in sick, who doesn't remember them and doesn't remember anything, just like everybody else in there. And they ask him 2 questions. What is your name? And then, do you believe in God? And when he says no, they light him on fire.
Yep.
And they're like, what happens if someone says yes? He's like, I don't know. No one's ever said yes.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So he goes, oh, so that's the great scheme of this all.
Right. So that's awesome. That's great. Because I guess he's a junior person who's never done this exit procedure before, even though it's in the same fucking room that he works in. There's only one room.
Literally by a cage, I think.
Right. It's a one room, and it's coming through a loudspeaker. There's no way you would not have heard this before. But anyway. Okay, so that's basically what happens on the outside. On the inside, we have this lady who Wynn finds very attractive. And he's like, oh, wow, I really like her. I hope that she succeeds. She meets up with another group of people. So then we have the kind of B plot of this movie is what is normally the only plot of Cube. And this is the B plot of Cube0 is these group of people in a cube. Right. Which is only, I believe it's only, or no, it starts off as 5, but the one guy dies immediately.
Oh, because he thinks he's drinking water and it turns out to be acid.
Well, that was the other guy.
The very first guy, yeah.
Right. No, in this one, the guy, they do the boot trick to try to check for traps. And then the boot trick, oh, look, everything's fine. So he goes in there and then he gets burned.
Yep.
So now there's only 4 of them. I guess there's old soldier, lady with blonde highlights.
Because she's old.
Yeah. Handsome big man. and this lady who is like, the attractive one that Wynn is trying to do. So
Right.
they're going through, they know that there's traps because the big guy lost a couple of fingers, so they know this is why they're doing this. That they throw in the boot to see what's going on, to see how to get out of it, blah blah blah. So they take turns going in and testing with the boot, and then testing if there's traps and blah blah blah, and they're trying to get out, but they're not doing well. So the one girl ends up getting sprayed with this, like, I don't know what you call it. I don't know, some kind of like acid, but it's like an internal acid. Anyway, so she goes into a cube. They accidentally let the door close. They open it up, and then she's not in that cube. So this is where we find out that the cubes are moving, just like they were in the first one and this one. A little too fast, if you ask me, but whatever.
Well, and this time they have letters.
Right. Yeah, this time they have letters as coordinates that they try to map out, the coordinates, because like, if they're letters, then there's 26 sides, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So they're trying to map out where they are, and they're trying to figure out where the edges are, like how they normally. So anyway, so they find this girl again, and she's like, they think she's dead, but she's not. She just like lost half of her face, and her hands are like literally has no skin on them. Yeah, it's not going good. So the big guy tries to save her. She ends up scratching him because she's freaking out. He gets infected from the scratches.
Yeah.
And his hand starts rotting immediately. You see his face start rotting too. So the soldier dude like throws him in one of the trap rooms.
Well, he goes, "Hey, it's like it's slow reacting. It's like, you'll go first to every room," and then they immediately throw him into a trap room, and you're like, "Well, he's gone."
Well, yeah, I mean, but again, as we find out later, he was right. But
and he got sonically pulverized.
Yeah, he got sonically squished.
Yes.
So anyway, so there's it's just the soldier guy and this woman. Now, Wynn then looks through her file, which is frowned upon but not illegal for him to look through. And he's looking through, and in her file, he does not find a consent form.
Yes.
So he basically goes, "Oh, she's not supposed to be in there, because if she doesn't have a consent form, we got to call upstairs because she's not supposed to be in there."
Right.
Obviously he's self-serving because he's, he likes her and he wants to save her, but
he's drawing pictures of her.
Right. Yeah. So he's like, we have to save her. And he's like, "Oh, you really want to call upstairs? You want to be the one to do it?" He's like, "Sure." So they like unlock the phone.
Yep.
Which is like in his protective cover. And then they go to make a phone call, and before they can call, the phone rings. They answer the phone, and basically they find out that, like this big special thing comes down, or that's I think that's what they did, the exit room thing. Anyway.
Yeah.
So after that, he decides, the one guy decides, "Hey, I'm going to go upstairs on my own in this elevator that we get our orders from." So he goes in the elevator, and instead of going up, it goes down, and he goes into the cube. Now, it looks like he knew it was going to do that.
Yeah.
Now, where the hell are the orders coming from?
Because he was already in the up position.
Right? Well, it only goes, there's up and down, meaning there's two positions. One position is their room, the second position is the cube. Where the hell did the other people come from?
Yep.
Like there should be 1, 2, 3 at least.
I agree.
Or down, middle, up, or something. But no, there's only. But anyway, he goes in there like he's gonna go upstairs to talk to them, but then he just goes straight into the cube. Anyway, so he goes into the cube, and because he has his memories and he knows the cube because he's been watching people go through this cube for how long, he knows how it works,
and he has like the ability to like play everything out in his head, that memory.
Well, yeah, he's like a magical chess genius prodigy, so he uses that
puzzles in his head.
Yeah, he uses that spatial awareness magic to figure out that thing. But again, even just having the experience of watching all the people die in the cube, you probably know how it works,
Yeah.
Like if you play a game for as long as he's played a game, you'd figure out how it works, right? Yeah. So anyway, so he pretty quickly catches up with them. He tells them, "Hey, I'm here to save you." They immediately, threaten him and think that he's evil, which, not necessarily wrong, because he's killed a lot of other people in there, or watched them die.
Right.
Anyway, so, they end up becoming buddies. So because he goes in there and he befriends them, the people upstairs get very upset. And so the guy comes down with, I think, the worst fake eye I have ever seen in my life.
I don't know what you're talking about.
So he's like the head dude. He's like very arrogant. He's wearing like a friggin' tuxedo or something. I mean, he's like
Wolf cane.
Yeah,
Wolf
he's like
yeah.
he's like very, obviously very important. He comes down there just like ordering people around, and he comes down there with his two like special, I guess, agent people, right?
His cronies, yeah.
Yeah, so they come down there like, we're gonna take over your station. So they wave their hand over the keyboard, and it becomes like a flat thing with like contact pieces, and then they have like these metal fingertip glove things, so they can type faster, I guess. Sure. So anyway, they start taking over. They start trying to find this guy, because he doesn't have a chip to track them. So
they have to do it the old-fashioned way.
They have to do it the old-fashioned way, which is like check all the rooms. There can't be that many fucking rooms. I don't know why they don't have a detector that says what rooms people are in anyway.
Yes.
But anyway, so they're trying to look on there, and then Dodd is just kind of like, get out of the way, right?
Yep.
He's like, yeah, go do something else. So he's just kind of sitting there, and then after a while, he figures out that, you know what, like, Wynn was a good dude. He asked too many questions and stuff, but like these guys are just assholes, and I don't like them. I'm going to go with him. So he sneaks off into the other room, and he basically like, sabotages their console so they can't see what's going on or do anything about it, so that Wynn can get out.
Right. But before they do that, he was able to know the coordinates with the numbers, and then somehow then eroded all the letters in all the rooms. Yeah. So then he was at square one inside.
Right. They somehow, I don't know, squirted acid on the letter. I don't know how that works.
Right.
Like, why do you have that function? What's the point of that?
Yeah.
But
kill
anyway,
switch.
Yeah. Magic acid melting numbers.
Yep.
So they sabotage them. They get upset, whatever. So by the time they get back in, like the guy, they kill Dodd because he swallows a piece that he pulled out of it. So they have to cut it out of him and stuff, which he's just buying Wynn time.
Yeah.
So by the time he gets out, they basically go, hey, you know what? The only thing we can do is, or no, sorry, this is what Dodd did before he went in there, is he reset the whole system. Now they alluded to in the beginning, when you reset the system, all the cubes line up, so you know how to get out. So all the letters are in correct order.
Right.
But the first thing it does after it lines up all the cubes is it does a clean sweep, which is essentially like a decontamination procedure that eliminates everything with fire.
Everything inside.
Right. So they basically, once the reset starts, they have 10 minutes to get out, or else they're going to be evaporated.
Yeah.
So they're trying to get out. The soldier guy kind of turns on him, so he ends up falling and dying.
Yep.
And then they leave, and then they are able to remote activate the soldier, because I guess in this future thing, they have chips that the soldiers can be used remotely, like a drone, but it's a person.
And their eyes turn green.
Yeah. So then they have to fight off the soldier guy inside the cube. Of course, they manage to make it out of the auxiliary exit, and right before the soldier gets them, so then the soldier gets evaporated, but they swim out.
Yes, it's a big lake, pond that they come out of.
I don't know how that works, but so they come out of this pond. So it's the Wynn and the lady, and they're basically Wynn finds out that there's no way that we're going to get away. They're right behind us.
Right.
So he basically tells her to run away, and then he's going to try to stall them. And he does. So we see a scene of him being strapped down in a chair with a metal halo on his head, and there's his head is shaved, and he's got a bunch of designs in his head. I don't know, marking, surgical markings.
Right.
And basically they go, hey, well, you signed a consent form too, so you're stuck here forever. So we're going to make sure.
He was also a prisoner.
Right. Because, he was also supposedly. Who knows what really is going on, because they control your memories, so you never know what the hell was really going on.
Yeah.
So anyway, so they're like, yeah, we're going to basically do whatever we want to you, and then you're going to go back in the queue.
Yep.
And so they show him cutting into his head, and they're like, ah. And then they cut to the lady, and we see her in the forest with her daughter she was looking for. And she's looking at the picture that guy drew for her. So, like, she managed to get away. But then we cut back to him, and then he's back in the cube again, but he's acting like Kazan from the first cube with his autism magic.
Yes, he wants the blue room. Let's go back to the blue room with a new group of people.
Right, yeah. So it's literally the same way that Kazan was introduced in Cube that this guy is now introduced in Cube0. So they, I guess, cut into his brain to intentionally give him autism, I suppose.
Yeah. Which means he'd be able to do the same thing that Kazan did. He'd be able to see those numbers. He'd still have that.
If they were in the same cube, though, because this one wasn't complicated enough. Like anyone, like that girl was not a prodigy.
No,
you know what I mean. And she was able to map out all the places that they were at. So again, this one wasn't complicated enough to need like factorizations or whatever the hell. Like this was the second generation cube, which was so complicated that they needed to do that kind of stuff. This is the first cube that's not that hard, so I don't understand what the point of that was.
No, but the implication is that Kazan was potentially had gone through the same thing.
Right. I just think it's a very
he was made that way. Yeah.
Again, I don't know what they do with autism in movies. Like, I
don't know.
What is the deal? Why do you have to make autism like this weird magic thing? I don't get it. Anyway. So that's it. So, I believe this is only the second time I've seen it. I was not really impressed the first time. I really wasn't impressed the second time. It's not bad. It just, again, this is in no way a Cube movie.
Correct.
I mean, there is a cube, but again, the cube part is plot B. And the plot A is really this, like, behind the scenes of the cube world that we had no access to before. I don't know why it's the main point of this film, but it is.
Right, because the cube formula got so stale. The movie about the cube was about, people watching the cube and the maintenance of the cube.
Right, I don't understand.
This is third-ish time for me watching it. I was not impressed the very first time. Like, I remember when it came out because it was one of those straight to DVDs essentially. I watched the previous two and then I watched this. I go, okay, something's wrong here. Why is it this way? There's it could have been more impressive traps, more impressive stuff, different ways of seeing it as the very first cube and kind of like the architects of it. But they also implied that, I heard there's multiple versions of cubes out there. So we're implying that, Hypercube and the first cube all could be different locations, different countries, different states cube, essentially, it feels like. I think they were trying to expand it into this wider universe. And, by the lack of anyone after this, you could say that failed miserably. Set that up.
Well, again, Cube, you can do the same type of movie.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like, again, that's Hollywood. Like, okay, you can have Cube, right? Like the sequel to Cube can just be a different group of people in the same place.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, you could mix it up. Obviously, you don't want to do the same thing. You mix it up a little bit, but you don't have to do that big of a crazy change, right?
Right.
But like, if it worked the first time, it'll work for a while. Look at these franchises that are milking like, 12, 14 movies out of the same franchise. It's the same thing.
Yes.
They change very, very little, and people keep watching it.
Yep.
Like, you could very easily keep making cubes with different groups of people. I don't understand why they need to make the changes.
Considering there's like 15,000 rooms, and we see 10.
Right. Yeah. It's like, I don't understand. I don't get it.
Right.
I don't get the direction that these sequels went in.
No. You want me to go first for my highlights?
Go for it.
I mean, yes, the lore was craptacular, but I felt like it went back to the griminess that made the first cube better. So I like the fact they went back to the metallic-y deal. The I need tetanus shots. Everything after I touch everything in where they work in the cube, and everything else like it. I don't know if there's much more than that because I have a lot of negatives for this movie. Yeah, that's about it. How about you?
I will say this one had some pretty good practical effects in it. Now, don't get me wrong. There's CGI in this, and it is horrible. I mean, I'm not denying that, but the practical effects in here are pretty good. There's a scene where the guy gets like covered in acid and is like basically his whole body like degloves.
Oh yeah, yes.
So his
And
skin
his
just like
face,
sloughs off. Yeah, I mean, very very well done. I mean, like when the girl got injected with the acid or whatever that like melted her face and her hands, and then like the big guy got the same thing. Like those are really cool effects that they did. Again, like they cut the one dude up. I mean, again, it looked good. The practical stuff looked good.
Yes, practical. Yes,
CGI was horrible. Again, that's on the other side. I'm just saying the practical effects that they did do. There was only a few, but I thought they were done really well. This one, they brought the uniforms back, which again, at least we can feel like it's Cube with that. They brought back the colored rooms, so like it doesn't feel like you're in the same cube all the time. At least different colors every now and again. But that's what what's your low points, or do you want me to go first?
Why don't you go into your low points?
Okay.
I'm sure we have a lot of the same.
I cannot get over that eye. That cyborg guy, okay, the arrogant guy that comes down to like run everything. He's got this like cyborg guy that's drooping halfway down his face. It doesn't move. It doesn't have any kind of like interesting thing. It looks like a metal ball with a little lens at the end of it, but it's got like this latex fleshy net like holding it up. It is the dumbest looking thing. I mean, I've seen like B-level sci-fi movies with better effects than that. It's ridiculous. I don't understand how you can have that skin degloving scene, which is great, and then that's the cyborg eye that you have, and the guy wears it for the whole. His character has that permanently.
Yes, like
he's in how many scenes? He's in like at least 30 minutes of the movie with that eye. It's like, who thought that was okay? Like, how did that? Like, yeah, this looks great. Like, not even we'll fix it in post. They didn't even bother. It's just there. But anyway, that eye was horrible. We already saw the CGI is terrible. Again, I did like the practical effects. The CGI is something else. It is bad. I really hated how they can magically record a dream with like a laser.
Yes.
Like you can't record dream. Whatever. Just stupid. Now there's a lot of the equipment in their like room, that was supposed to be like, ooh, this is, fancy computer equipment. They had fans on everything, right?
Yep.
Those fans did not spin.
No.
They were just decorations. They were just sitting there. Why do you have all these fans if they don't serve a purpose? Again, I know they were looking for a certain like mystique, you know what I mean? They're looking for an aesthetic of this room, and those like these fans that don't move, or it's this perfect like industrial look that they were going for. But yeah, it was done just again blaringly obvious to me that they weren't moving at all. And then of course autism magic. It drives me nuts. I don't know why they keep doing it. This one has no excuse.
No.
The first one, 1997, that was like, peak, autism magic time, right? People didn't know any better. Like 2004, you know better, man.
Yep.
You should not be doing that. You go ahead with yours.
Yes, his cyborg eye. A machine gave me this eye and this leg.
They never show the leg either.
No. All right. Cool. His cronies, awful. Like they're like magnetic fingertips to take control. I'm like, all right, why do people need to have mechanical keyboards? If this technology is that form on the other side of the keyboard, maybe they'd be better at their jobs if they also were able to do a now, above keyboard copper connections to do things.
It costs money, man. You're not gonna invest in people that you're gonna kill later anyway.
Right.
Like those, like I'm sure it takes training and I'm sure it takes money to give the magic gloves to people.
Yeah.
They're not gonna give that kind of training to the other people, but they have those keyboards set up for them in case they ever do have to go down and do shit for themselves. So
right.
I understand why it's there.
Yeah. The CG is awful. They showed that they could do good practical effects in all of these movies, yet they still are going, you know what? We're still going to do computer graphics. Why? At that point in time, I guarantee you the computer graphics cost more money than the practical effects.
Well, yeah. Well, this is still the era of, like basically late 90s, early 2000s was, we got to have two separate effects. It's either practical or CGI, right? You can never have anything else. Like now in the modern day, you understand that you can mix these two together and you can make them both look better by using both of them.
Yes.
And that's, again, now everything looks good again. But again, back in the old days, it was cheesy, but the practical effects still made it fun. And then it was like, people went like purely CGI and that looked like crap.
Yep.
And they did that for a long time. But again, like even movies would have some effects that were practical because it just looks better that way.
Yeah.
But the practical ones would look okay. And the pure CGI ones look like garbage. And so like even nowadays, pure CGI still looks like garbage. Like there's always that uncanny valley. You can tell when it's happening. I know they try to pretend like it's not there. Like, oh, look, you can barely tell. You can still tell. Barely telling is still telling.
Yes.
Like there's no
reason
people,
PlayStation 5 graphics. Those are your options right now.
Right. So it's like just do a mix of both. That's why the age reduction thing that they do with people is generally done very well.
Yes.
Like I don't know if you saw the newest Indiana Jones movie, but like
he looked great.
Yeah, he looks awesome. I mean, he still moves like he's a 90-year-old man,
Right.
So like he's still, he's still trying to run like he's, his legs barely work, but like his face looks great.
Yeah.
So yeah, nowadays they understand the mix of the two is the way to go. But at this period, it was either one or the other.
Yeah. The entire fact that the Cube was the B plot, absurd in the Cube movie.
Yep.
And when the guy gets flamed alive, right? So he's just to bone. You would think having no skin or muscle left on you that your skeleton would at least fall apart and not be standing upright afterwards.
I don't know. If you cook a whole pig and then peel all the meat off, it still is pig shaped.
Well, yeah, but it's not standing upright.
Well, afterwards. No, but the guy that was standing upright, he was held up with metal, like stiff metal poles.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It wasn't like he was just standing there. It wasn't like the skeleton kept standing. Like he was held up with stiff metal poles. So his body went slack as he died. And just those metal poles held his body upright. It was purely for the effect, but
right.
At least there's a reason.
When you record someone's dreams or memories, if it's supposed to be a memory wipe scan, she was seeing herself from the outside. She would not have recalled that from being outside her body, looking at herself happening. She'd be through her eyes and seeing it through her eyes of what happens.
You never dream outside of yourself?
No. I eventually go back to myself.
I mean, I do all the time. I see myself in third person all the time.
Oh. And yeah, that you're able to okay, this is 2004. So DVD writers weren't really a big thing. So we're looking at what? 800 megabytes for a CD?
Yeah.
The fact that I think that Dream would be bigger than that entire CD from the human mind.
Who knows? Who knows? It might just be a series of JPEG screenshots.
Maybe.
We don't know what they put on that disc.
Where the hell did those guys come from? If we only saw the two places the elevator
That's what I'm saying. Like, he went on the elevator like, oh, he's going to go up and talk to the man upstairs. Nope. That elevator has 2 settings, and it's up or down. And when he goes down, it goes into the cube, like literally directly into the cube.
Yes.
Like the elevator door is open and there's a cube door right there. So yeah, where do those guys come from? Unless there's like a magic, maybe they wave their hand over the button and it flips over and they had to touch it with their metal finger.
Maybe. And why is a third exit leading to a pool of water that is easily accessible to the public?
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, what? Well, again, how do you, because if you have a cube that's literally 26 cubes high and each cube is 14 feet tall, how tall is that? Whatever. It doesn't matter what the number is. It's a lot. What fucking lake are you going to find where you can put that facility in there and no one would notice?
Well, let's say 10 feet is a story. So this thing is at minimum 30-ish stories tall.
Right. Now, okay, imagine you jump in the water underneath this thing.
Yeah.
And Miracle, it's right on the edge, so you just go straight up. Like, what are the odds you're going to have enough air to swim that much?
Correct.
Or where to go?
Yes.
Again, if it was in the ocean or something, that would be fine. No, it was like in a lake.
Remember, and this is 30 stories up and 30 stories sideways.
Right.
That is absurd. You're looking at the length of a football field and in both directions and up. That's
more
huge.
Than that. Yeah, more than that.
Yeah. That's absurd.
I agree. The logistics of it don't make sense.
Right. And she just happened to be there with her daughter, so that she was in a public place to begin with.
Yeah, again, they don't explain how she got her daughter back.
No.
At all.
No. Yeah, this movie was disappointing. And then they just go, oh, wait, we create autism and throw people into the...
Yeah, the ending was completely unnecessary.
Yes.
Again, like he wasn't supposed to remember anything when they put him in the cube anyway. They should have just had him waking up in the cube.
Right.
Easy. Yep. I don't know. Why do you have to put autism in there? There's no reason for that.
Because they want to call back.
I guess.
For some reason.
They didn't have anybody with a disability in the cube, so they had to have one.
Yep.
I guess. I don't know.
Sure.
They couldn't even think of their own, so they had to reuse another one.
Yep.
Dear God.
That's what I got.
Yeah.
Do you want me to go first for number of destroyed boots?
Yes, go for it.
2.5.
Wow.
I did not like this movie.
I mean, I didn't like it either. I don't think I disliked it that much.
What are you going with?
3.
Okay.
3 destroyed boots out of 10.
Yeah. Not good.
No,
it killed the franchise.
Well, yeah. Again, like this, you put this movie by itself, would it be higher? Sure. Would it be, would it be a lot higher? No. I mean, I give it maybe 1.5 higher by itself.
Yeah.
But as a sequel to Cube, it is atrocious.
Yes.
Because again, it's like the Cube is the B plot.
Yes.
Of the movie. Like the Cube is like not even there for half the film. Where the first 2 movies are, again, all in the Cube. Like that's the whole movie takes place in it. That's supposed to be the point. That's why it's called Cube.
Right. Maybe they meant to call it Zero Cube, as in there's Zero Cube.
Yeah, I don't know. I was like, I don't understand. Like this whole B plot thing, it's like, what?
Yeah. I do want, how you realize the Cube series, you make, we're going to call in a consultant for these traps, John Kramer. Right?
I mean, I guess, but that would be more of torture. Like you'd have they would have to get captured and then wake up in a cube.
Yep.
And then, but the one cube would be a trap, and then they'd have to get out, and then it would only be one cube that they get out of.
Yeah, I'm just saying, just revitalize it. Just combine 2 series that
there's a lot of like crossed themes there. So
There very much is, yeah. So, all right, cool. Anything else?
Nope.
All right, why don't you take us home?
All right. Join us next week as I force Graveyard to watch anime. That's right. For the first time, you'll be subjected to that Japanese animated goodness we all know and love. We'll be easing him in with some horror-themed oldies but goodies, namely Perfect Blue, Wicked City, Demon City Shinjuku, and Ninja Scroll. The last one really isn't horror-themed between you and me, but I like it anyway. So we're going to make him watch it because it's good.
Yes, I'm excited.
Oh, you are?
I am.
I mean, these would not be the first ones I would make you watch, but since we're doing it in the realm of horror,
yes,
I have to.
Perfect.
Anyway, remember, we watch bad movies, so you don't have to.
And this has been Graveyard saying, have you checked on the children?
This is Salem saying, long live the new flesh.
Night.
Night.